Again, I'm Manny Espinosa. I am the CEO of ALPFA. One thing they forgot to mention, I'm a retired partner from one of the best firms, PricewaterhouseCoopers. And so I'm extremely proud to be part of this program. I remember when I had breakfast with Maria Moats, and we talked about what can we do that's, really a game changer in terms of really impacting, the Latino network group at, at PwC. And we basically said, let's develop a series of courses that basically, will help you, hopefully empower you, focus on your advancement, focus on a lot of your leadership potential, okay? And so we're hoping that this leadership series, this is the first one, May 17th is the next one, and that one will be, as this one says, it's, about Latino cultural differences, but the next one will be about Latinas, okay? And so we have a series, the third one will be about purely leadership. And so we hope that you take away from this, that you're excited about it, and that you basically go back and tell everybody, okay, so next time the room is double, okay? Because I think that that's real important, okay? This is our 5th time doing this, okay? So we should be okay with this. I mean, right? You guys aren't nervous, are you? Not at all, okay. But let me tell you a little bit about our background, okay? We'll introduce ourselves. That's kind of relevant to why we think that we're going to bring and share some of our experiences with you. I was born in a border town, Nogales, Arizona, right next to Nogales, Sonora, Mexico. So I grew up bilingual, and I grew up bicultural, okay? Big difference, right? There's some people who think bilingual means bicultural, but it's not, okay? When I was in high school, I remember Nogales is predominantly 98%, 99% Latino, okay? And I remember going and seeing the mayor, the city council, the chief justice, all of the leadership had names like Smith and Rockland and Kissinger. There were no Espinosas or Garcias or Gonzalez's at all. And I said, God, aren't Latinos leaders? And ever since that time, I in my career have been really focused on how do we get Latinos to see themselves as leaders, become leaders, and then eventually get up and move up the ladder. And so a lot of this program, the ALPFA Leadership Series, is focused on really trying to improve each and every one of you, okay? By the way, yes, I joined, I was in public accounting. Some of the exciting things that I did, one of them was a secondment in Mexico City, 4 years. But I thought it was in Mexico City, but it turned out to be I was the only Latino audit partner at that time with Coopers and Lybrand. And so every major assignment in Latin America, Manny Espinosa was called, okay? And so I really have gone to every single country and worked basically every Latin American country. And by the way, bicultural, I'll tell you one thing, there's a lot of difference between Mexicans and Argentines and Chileans and Brazilians, and we're not talking just gap, we're talking cultural differences. And I think that I learned a lot, okay, regarding that, because I had to change and I had to know how to influence people and how to do it, and it was different in all these different countries, okay. And so we're hoping that some of these experiences, are highlighted in this series, okay. Suri?
Thanks, Manny. My name is Suri Surinder, and as Tony mentioned, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of ALPFA Institute. How many of you have heard about ALPFA Institute before today? That's good. That's great. It's actually a great collaboration between the Wharton College of Business, so it brings a lot of rigorous research in the areas of diversity, inclusion, and most importantly, leadership and Latino leadership. And we combine that research with the practical, battlefield experience of corporate veterans like Manny, myself, and Juan Roberto Job, and make it applicable for audiences like this. So it's really, you'll find a unique blend of some excellent research and practical application of that research. My background and my diversity journey started 30 years ago when I landed in Houston, Texas, to go to Rice University for a master's degree in structural engineering from India. So I studied engineering there. True story, I landed in Houston in a white jacket, white bell-bottoms, high-heeled shoes, and a black shirt with a big collar, because Saturday Night Fever had just come to and I thought I was being cool. So my journey started at that point. I finished my degree at Rice and then came to New York City for an MBA in marketing from the City University of New York, Baruch College in Gramercy Park. Drove a cab evenings and weekends in New York City for 2.5 years. Stories I can tell you, make your hair curl outside. And then joined right down the street at Pfizer at 42nd and 2nd, was in strategic planning at Pfizer. Then left Pfizer, went to 42nd and 6th, and joined the regional Bell operating company. It was called NYNEX back then. NYNEX merged with Bell Atlantic. Bell Atlantic merged with GTE and became Verizon. And so I started on the ground floor of NYNEX. 16 years later, I was running a $3 billion company within NYNEX. I was a region president with 5,000 employees, 3 million customers. And so along the way of that journey, tons of lessons learned. Ran a couple of employee resource groups, was on the Chairman's Diversity Council, went on international assignments, similar to Manny, bopped around the globe for a couple years. So you'll see a lot of that experience in our session today. After Verizon, I went to McKinsey & Company, very similar environment to PwC, and from McKinsey went to Capital One. I ran early stage collections at Capital One, and then came to ALPFA Institute. So that's my background. It's a pleasure being here with you today. Juan Roberto.
Thank you. Buenos dias. Good morning. So, much like Manny, I'm also a border brat, and I grew up in Ciudad Juarez and El Paso, Texas. Again, bilingual, bicultural, spending kind of one foot in one country all the time, 1 foot in another country. Time I spent in Mexico, I was always defending the United States. Time I spent in the United States, I was, getting beat up for being Mexican. So it was always, but like for me, on the border, we had like this third culture, which was the border culture, and it was an existence that was totally interdependent, economically, politically. I mean, that was just our life. Spent time working 30 years in the financial services industry. Recently retired from that with assignments in the United States and in Mexico, and the time spent here really focusing on the multicultural communities and their relationship with my firm, and most of that based on how to communicate with the community those things that were of value to our company, and then taking to the company those things that were of value to the community. That also had applications inside the office, working with our general population and with our ethnic minority community within the company, again on how to contribute, how to leverage the diversity, and how to have a mutual communication that would bring success for both parties. My part of this program is to look at the cultural aspects of and who we as Latinos are and what we bring to the table. Manny?
What was the name of your book that you wrote?
Just because I'm Latin doesn't mean I mumble.
Yes. It's a great book, by the way. You have to buy it. But thank you, Juan Roberto. Thank you, Suri. By the way, how many are ALPFA members? Okay, look at all these people you're going to sign up afterwards, Liz. See that? Okay. So we should have a standing room only without outside. But it really is, part of this series, by the way, some of them are going to be live, some of them are going to be webcasts, some are going to be interaction with ALPFA, okay? And by the way, New York happens to be our largest chapter, almost 3,500 members. And so we're going to try interacting you with our membership as well to introduce you to role models and to mentors and stuff like that. So again, please sign up and become a member and get active. I think it'll do you well. This is talking, leveraging Latino cultural differences. Well, there's a couple that we're not going to really, hone in because those are obvious, okay? First of all, how many are bilingual? Okay, quite a few of you, right? Okay. How many would consider themselves bicultural? Okay, all right. Well, we're not going to talk about those two significant, cultural differences that you have, but that's a strength. I'm telling you, use it. I remember when I was in public accounting and they would just send people to quality control, they'd send people to Lubbock and El Paso and Tucson. I got to go to Argentina and Chile and Mexico and Brazil because I was bilingual and, bicultural. And the thing is, so use that to your advantage. Make sure that when you're, you tell them, I want to do a secondment. I want to get involved with international assignments. So it's a benefit that you have. No one can take away that. Use it, okay, to your advantage. The other one is we're passionate people, right? We're passionate. We love to, get enthusiastic about almost everything. But those are the obvious ones that we're going to be talking about. But really, the ones that we're going to be looking at, there's two kinds of cultures. One's the outer layer, okay? What do people wear? You know, how do they talk? You know, how they dress, their behaviors, their customs, their practices. Those people can see. They can say, that's a Latino, that's a Latina, okay? But how about the hidden cultures? And these are the ones that we're going to concentrate on, the ones that the values, beliefs, and philosophies that define your attitudes on whether it be communication, relationships, and things that people don't see visible, okay, but makes you tick. It's who you are, okay? And a lot of that comes from your geography, you know, your religion, you know, the history, your folklore, your family, okay? And so that's what we're going to be focused on, the hidden culture. I'm going to turn it over to Suri.
Thanks, Manny. When you look at visible culture, there are millions of differences in the way people act, the way people dress, the way people talk. But when you look at hidden culture, all of the research indicates that there are only 7 ways in which the billions of people on the planet are different. It's an important realization. Only 7 ways. We're going to talk about them today. You can see those 7 different variables. We call them global moderating variables. And you see them on this chart. To earn respect, when you look at this, credibility, trust, and respect, 3 key currencies for leadership. And those 7 different variables fall into those 3 categories. You see the first 2, hierarchical perspective and group focus. We'll talk about those. Trust GMVs, relationship orientation, communication indirectness. Credibility GMVs, time control, change tolerance, and work importance. Here's the first one. Now, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide because there's a lot of information on here, okay? It's in your workbooks, by the way, so if you can't see there's an eye chart, look at your workbooks. On one page, this is a patented proprietary approach from ALPFA Institute, where on one page we do 3 things. Number 1, you'll do a quick self-assessment. So engage with me on this one. Everybody is different, okay? We can talk about cultures as an average and as a norm, but there is always standard deviation around the norm. We are all individuals, so we'll do a quick self-assessment of your personality along these 7 dimensions. We'll do this 7 times, okay? Number 2, we will talk about how on the same grid, on the same framework, how Latino cultures are different and how global cultures are different. So you'll have a sense by the time you're done about yourself, where you are here, you'll have a sense of how that relates to the Latino norm and other global cultures. Perhaps most importantly, the third one, we're going to talk about this firm that we love. We're going to talk about PwC and where the PwC culture falls out on this framework. And honestly, I think that's the most important connection because that's where the application is going to happen. Okay, so engage with me on this one because this is going to be the basis of what we're going to do, you know, throughout the session. So you can see where it says 1, a big 1 over there. Take those, answer those 5 questions for me in your workbook, if you don't mind. Rated a 1 if you strongly disagree with the statement, a 5 if you strongly agree, and any number in between if you're in between. Okay, I'll give you 2 seconds to do that. If you have your score, go down to where it says 2 and put an X in the column that captures your score. Okay? So let me ask you, show of hands. How many people from 5 to 9? Okay, so a couple. How many from 10 to 13? Okay, so you have about maybe 7 people. Okay, 14 to 17. Okay, whole bunch, so there's about 15 people. Okay, 18 to 21. 3 or 4. 22 to 25. Nobody. Okay, so it's kind of a normal distribution. Okay, it starts off small here and grows here. Probably has a mean, median, mode, whatever you want to call it. 14 to 17, 18 to 21, and drops off here. Now let me tell you the interpretation. I deliberately didn't want to guide you too much. This variable is hierarchical perspective, authoritarian versus egalitarian. If you were on the right-hand side of this grid, there's a tendency towards more hierarchical perspective. The group, by the way, is skewed over on the right-hand side. So chances are a lot of folks in this room are used to more authoritarian cultures, okay, where hierarchy is important. There is a lot of deference to people in authority. You look at the definition, okay? So that's kind of where the group is. Over on the left-hand side, folks that are over here, and there are a couple people in these two buckets, probably more egalitarian. I know you already, okay? Chances are you're not that much focused on authority, kind of do your own thing a little bit, okay? And that's probably where you are. So put an X there, okay, where you were, and put a G where the group is on your workbook, so which is probably somewhere here, okay? This is where the group average is. Come over to the right for a minute, and let's see how the story develops, okay? What it says, number 3. These are 50 countries in the globe. It's a selected sample of countries around the world, and where they stand on the same grid that you filled out for yourself. It's the same scale. So you see the highly authoritarian countries, a lot of Middle Eastern, Asian countries on the right, and the highly egalitarian countries, Australia, Canada, Denmark, New Zealand on the left, okay? The US is on the low side. Low authoritarianism. On average, the American culture is more egalitarian. Look at where the Latino countries fall out. There's 6 countries on here, okay? There are a couple European, couple South American, couple North American countries. See, most of them fall in the moderate to high authoritarianism category, which, by the way, coincides with where this group is. So right now, the group is pretty much aligned with the normative predictions of the model for Latino cultures, okay? So hold on to that thought. Follow with me to the last piece of this puzzle, over where it says 4. Those are the workplace behaviors of low authoritarianism and high authoritarianism. So read through those if you would. Low, group decision making common, employee treated as equals, important to delegate responsibility, first name addressing common, very common in this country. When I first came, it took me 2 years to start to address people by their first name, by the way, because I was so used to the Indian culture of Mr. and Professor and Doctor. Signs of position frowned upon. Oftentimes you have hoteling, you don't even have offices. Managers visit subordinates' offices, meetings combine levels, everyone expected to speak up, dress may be informal, upward mobility easier and quicker. That's on the low side. Look at what happens on the high side. Boss makes decisions, authoritative, asking too much considered weak. In authoritarian cultures, if you ask employees, hey, we're making an important decision, what's your opinion? They look at you like you had 2 heads. Because you're the boss, you're expected to know the answer, what are you asking me for? The very thing that we prize here is looked down upon as a sign of weakness in an authority. That's how different cultures can be. Title, surnames common, empowering can be disruptive, meetings only with same level, subordinates speak rarely, if at all, dress more formal, promotions not easy, take time. So look at those 2 ends of the spectrum on this, okay? And answer the $1 million question for me. Where do you think PwC would fall in this grid? Just opinions. Where do you think? Is it high authoritarianism, low, or in the middle? 10 to 13. Oh, that's pretty specific. So on the low side. Did you have another opinion? It tends to be on the lower side, more egalitarian. Interesting. Interesting. Any others? Any takers for the high side?
What if we asked you the PwC office in Argentina? Where do you think it would be? Way over here? Yeah. You know, it's interesting, but traveling through all the Latin American countries, one thing that kind of surprised me was that some of them had 2 entrances. One for the partners and the clients, and then one for all the other employees. That's a little different. That's not kind of, we're all the same, right?
So now, if you say it's 10 to 13, put a P here. Now you have on one grid 3 different things, right? You know where the group is, you know where you individually are, and you have a sense of where PwC is. That is very important, because I will tell you, all of our research indicates that your skill set and your job fit got you into PwC, and it'll keep you at PwC. But your mindset and your cultural fit is going to accelerate your progress at PwC. And this grid is going to enable you to figure out where are you close to the PwC culture and where are you far from that, and what adjustments you need to make without losing yourself to bridge that gap. Okay, so that's where the application comes in. Now, Juan Roberto is going to drill down a little bit on the Latino cultural norms that you saw on here, okay?
Sir, can I ask you a quick
Yeah,
question
yeah,
before
please.
we move on? So obviously, a number of the people that are here have been born and raised in the United States for at least part of their lives, if not all of their lives, but may have a Latino background. How do we see the fact that that we have bicultural people that are growing up in the United States, and we're growing in terms of numbers over time? Do we see the U.S.'s numbers, we expect them to move towards the right, or do we think that the Latino population here is going to continue to stay towards the left and help to sway other people this direction?
That's a fantastic question, Tony, and there's a little bit of movement that happens in both directions. So as the Latino population grows to 35% of the U.S., this cultural norm is going to shift a little bit, because that 35% is a huge quantitative number, and it's going to influence the culture. But at the same time, we find that as acculturation and assimilation happens of Latinos, they move a little bit over on this side. So for example, if we were talking, Manny asked the relevant question, PwC Argentina is probably more over here. Okay, the same room in Argentina, most people would have voted here. So that the movement that you just saw with this group being here is evidence of the movement to the left. Yeah. So it is a little bit both.
And you see it at PwC, all the surveys you sent out, what do you think? And they're really trying to communicate and really have a relationship with all their employees. They almost tend to shift a little bit based on the employee mix and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a moving target.
Thank you. And Tony's question actually is a terrific segue to the cultural piece and to what Suri mentioned, the issue of acculturation or assimilation. By definition, assimilation implies accepting the host culture and letting go of one's own culture, where acculturation is saying, I'm going to accept and take on aspects of the host culture without letting go any of mine. So what happens? So we as Latinos end up in a situation where we're kind of navigating, again, bicultural or multicultural, where we have the ability to navigate in and out of different cultural systems without letting go of who we are. And that's really what's at the core of it, not letting go who we are, but being willing to become who we can be. And so, were there any surprises when you saw your scores relative to the country scores? Did you, for those of you who aligned, similar to the Latino cultures in country, were there any surprises? Anybody surprised?
I have to say I was surprised, because I would have thought initially that I was more to the right.
Right.
But I've been with the firm many, many years, so little by little I've gotten to the left.
Right.
Obviously, I'm a director, so I tend to give out responsibility. So again, I think throughout the years, I've gone down.
Okay.
And I was just going to say, an interesting aspect of that is that I bet you if we asked you these questions, we're asking you these questions, and you're putting your PwC hat on, aren't you? What if I asked you, how do you deal with this at home? How about, how do you deal with this in your social aspect? The people that you hang around, la familia, okay, right? It would be different. And the thing that it's interesting about this thing is that a lot of people defer to what's happening, at the home and to the group, even at an office, and so kind of remember that. And by the way, for some of you, just like Tony said, it's going to be more dominant. As you go further south, some of these cultural differences become more dominant, but it also becomes more dominant at your home, the people you hang around with, and everything else, okay? And then you try switching it around at PwC, and it doesn't always work.
Right. So to that point, it's where the host culture exists. We have culture at home. We have culture in the workplace. We have culture in the community in which we live. Again, overall, in general terms, the cultural aspect and the relationship with authority among Latinos is to defer to authority and to be respectful or grant respect more readily for things like age and tenure and things of that nature. So and why this is, there's research that indicates that by the time we're 10 years old, a lot of these things, a lot of these values are locked in. You know, there was a book I read once that said, it was titled, All I Really Need to Know in Life I Learned in Kindergarten. Well, I realized that a lot of the things that I needed to know in life and then that I would apply in life, I learned in my mother's kitchen. I heard, you know, these lecciones. And, you know, again, as a Mexicano, any Mexicanos here? Okay, so a couple of things I got to tell you. I often just I have these spontaneous Spanish outbursts, so it's, you know, it's uncontrollable. So I'll make sure and translate for. Yes, it's contagious. Yeah, it's terminal. There's no cure for that. But you know, again, it comes from these lessons learned. I'm a big. You know, I heard the folk wisdom in our community. You know, refranes, los dichos, and things of this nature. I used to hear growing up a lot, que sabe más el diablo por viejo que por diablo, right? So the devil knows a lot because he's been around, because he's old. Not, you know, that's why he knows a lot, but not because he's the devil. And I used to think, well, okay, what do we got here? Well, okay, he's old, experience, but geez, he's the devil. He's a content expert, right? And so should we not defer to the devil because the devil's smart? But again, in my culture, growing up, there was more deference put to the age. So there's implications that come with that as Latinos in the workplace or in our interaction with folks, is that how we manage that respect, and might we avoid conflict in order to maintain that because we feel we're being respectful, or we think we're respectful, but folks are seeing us as passive. But again, you know, there's another refrán that says, lo cortés no quita lo valiente, right? So you can be courteous without being a pushover. So it's how to learn these skills, you know. So we have like ingrained some cultural aspects that are ingrained, and then other things that are acquired skill. A good example about this, who's seen all the press about the Washington Correspondents' Dinner, right? The whole roast, and they're kind of making jokes about the president. And you know, early in my career, I had the opportunity to be involved in downsizing project at my firm, and it was doing, you know, job eliminations. We eliminated 1,000 positions. We merged offices. We closed offices, and it was a really difficult and stressful time in the company. And so our senior management decided that at the end of it, in order to relieve tensions and you know, let some of that, you know, let people vent, that we would do something very similar to the Washington Correspondents' Dinner. We would have a roast, and that we would, you know, essentially make fun of the senior management team. And I was selected to be the MC of it, right? And I said, wow, it was a tremendous career opportunity because I got to spend a lot of time with the senior management team. You know, essentially they would coach me on how to insult them best and things that, you know, so I did spend a lot of time, got to know about them, their family, their quirks, all these things. And it went over great. You know, it allowed me to be in a situation with the senior managers that I would have never had before. People felt good and everything, but it was interesting that I went to go see my parents shortly thereafter, and I was, you know, how's it going at work? Oh, it's going great, man. I've been hanging out with the senior executives, and I told them about this. Oh yeah, we'd had this thing. I insulted all of them. And so, oh, my mother, you know, she's a little old Catholic lady. Ay, Madre Santa, you'll get fired. Well, and no, it's okay. But she told me something very telling. She said, mijo, I didn't raise you like that. That's not how I raised you, to be insulting people. And I said, yes, you're right, Mother. You didn't. I learned that on my own, and I'm really glad I did. Manny?
Yeah, well, you know, Latinos tend to avoid criticizing. You know, when they sent me to Mexico, one of the reasons they sent me there was, you know, we send surveys to our clients. And the clients in Mexico and Latin America were saying the service is not good, okay? And so, Manny, go down and try fixing it. So, you know, and so we go to the Mexican partner or you know, whatever country it was, and we basically tell them, we have these surveys that say you're not doing as good a job as you should be doing to your client. And then the Mexican partner would go to the CFO and say, hey, look, they tell me, and he says, oh, they're exaggerating. That's not true. I mean, you know, they kind of, and next year around, guess what? The survey would come back again, not good service. And again, we'd go through this thing, and what was happening? They didn't want to criticize each other. You know, they didn't want to step up. It was okay in the survey, but between them both, they were basically not really communicating. You know, PwC, respect is welcomed and appreciated, and it's really important. I mean, I think we have to be respectful to our clients, our peers, and so that's a cultural difference that you have over other people, okay? However, but how do you really gain respect at PwC? Through subject expertise, what you know. Okay, that's how you really get respect, okay? And the thing is, what your opinion is. Partners want to know how you feel. Partners, I've always said leadership, one of the big traits of a leader is they have an opinion, okay? And you can tell a leader by they have an opinion, and you're always expecting to hear that, okay? And so I think that's what's really important. Respect is great, hierarchies, all that kind of stuff. But, at PwC, the only thing that distinguishes you and the partners is experience. It's experience, okay? But you have different experiences that they have, okay? And they want you to add to help resolve and challenge, and help best, help the client, okay? But it's a team effort, and they expect you to be part of that instead of being a silent partner in that stuff, okay? Be innovative in generating ideas, but the main thing, claim them, right? Claim them. This is my opinion, all right? Any comments before we move on to skill? We spent a little bit more time on this one here, but any comments about hierarchy or, this skill level, okay?
I think this one is probably a particularly difficult one for Latinos anyway, for me, thinking about early on in my career, just being able to voice my opinion in a room where you generally look around and you say, well, the most senior person should be the one speaking, or you hesitate because you say maybe what I have to say may not be what the group accepts, and to the point of avoiding confrontation, you don't want to seem different, you want to assimilate. So how, as Latinos in the workplace, in the U.S., do we try to get past that to be able to show the leadership that we probably have in our heads but just don't want to say?
Mm-hmm. Practice. I mean, actually, look at how role models, look how leaders act and imitate them, all right? I really do think that, and even in their action in this room, okay, we ask a question. Don't be the last one to answer it. Don't be the first one, because people see that in you, okay? They want to see you, in action instead of a silent partner in this stuff. But it comes with practice a lot. And really, they always say, no question is a dumb question, okay? No comment's dumb, okay, and stuff like that. But I think the key thing is participate and speak up and do it.
And one thing I might add to that, so I'm assuming most of you have heard of team-based learning, which is something, of course, we're doing here at PwC. It's a program where we're trying to force our teams to have the more junior person be a more active member, have them contribute, to go into a meeting and have that person actually present the material, have a question be asked. So if you're not sure about putting yourself out there and you're feeling like, I'm not sure I want to take this risk, you have a great cover by using team-based learning. So say to your team, hey, I would like to employ TBL, here's why I would like to employ it, here's what I think we can do with it. And then that gives you more freedom to fail. And I think that freedom to fail allows you to succeed. That when you are not worried about failing, that's when you start contributing at a much higher level. So it is naturally ingrained in a lot of us to step back and to wait for an absolute invitation, a safe position to be able to voice your opinion. But we have this great cover right now that you might try to use as a way to get yourself out there on a more regular basis. Because what Manny's saying is absolutely true. We want you to speak up. We value that what you say, and we honestly believe as a firm that diversity of thought helps us to give the client a better work product than having just a few people make all the decisions.
Absolutely, Joe.
Yeah, I was going to add another, and I know there's a section on Latinas, but I did want to add a comment that you comment on. And I think, okay, my father is a gardener. If he has an idea for a garden, this way, right? So he'll call my husband and he'll say, hey, what do you think about that? So kind of the whole Latin, the male takes kind of the priority. And, I've been married 25 years. I'm the partner. My husband's not the partner. Yeah, my father will not do anything unless he talks to him first. So, you talk about bicultural and kind of having to have that switch. So any thoughts and realizing that there's another section, but just that's another element to what Liz was saying.
Yeah, we'll obviously stress it on the next session because we're going to have Latinas involved in giving that course and really kind of talking about it. But you're right, there is the culture. In fact, we have a course on we have a Women of Alpha, a program at Alpha, and we basically took it from, leadership, women, and then Latinas. And we actually had different modes and the different things. So yeah, there are differences there, definitely. Yeah. Okay, Suri.
Yeah, hey, I do want to, before I start on this, I do want to mention this conversation that just happened is critical. Okay, don't forget this. Some of the tips that Tony mentioned, the question that Liz asked goes to the heart of this program. It's tools and techniques that you can use the minute you step out the room. That's where this program is really leverageable, so keep asking these questions. One technique I'll tell you also that'll help with addressing Liz's question is ask questions. It's one thing to say, well, I don't agree with this, and that's one way to do it, but it takes a level of credibility to be able to say that in a room with directors and partners and senior managers. But if you are more junior, one way to insert your opinion is to ask a question. Would it be fair to say that this was true? Can I ask you to expand on what you are thinking and lead people down the path to where you want them to go? Okay, so I'll offer that as a good technique to show your opinion. So here's item number 2. So this is the cadence we'll do, okay? I'll set this up, and then, Juan Roberto will drill down on the Latino part of it, and then Manny will come and talk about PwC. So here's item number 2. Same drill. You guys are smart folks. Do the 5 questions for me, if you would. Real quick, self-score yourself. This is where it's advantageous to have a set of accountants in the room. Scoring happens really fast. Okay, 5 to 9. How many people? 5 to 9. Nobody. Okay, 10 to 13. Okay, so there's about 6 or 7. Okay, 14 to 17. A lot more. You have about 12 to 15. Okay, 15 to 20. 18 to 21. Okay, so that's about 10. 22 to 25. Not anybody. So very few people on the ends starts to rise here, and again, it's somewhere in the middle here. Let me tell you the interpretation. This is group focus. Me versus we. If you're on the left-hand side, less group focus, more individual focus, okay? Individual contribution. If you're on the right-hand side, it's more team-focused and team-based, okay? That's sort of the interpretation of this. Look at where the countries fall out. U.S., very low team focus. I don't know if that surprises you. It's a very low rating. Okay? Yeah, it's a highly individualistic culture. Again, remember, this is a relative scale. We're a team-based country, no question. But compared to some of these other countries, we are a lot less team-based, a lot more individually focused. Think about your scorecards. Okay, you have performance metrics that you have. I will guarantee you most of those metrics are individual performance. You have some team performance too. In a lot of these countries, all of the metrics on the scorecard are team performance. Okay? In the US, we will call individuals out and we'll reward them and we'll mention their accomplishments. You try doing that in Japan, that's a negative. You'll embarrass people. Don't call me out. Doesn't work. So that's why I'm saying that this is a relative scale. Look at where the Latino countries are. Moderate to high team focus, which, by the way, coincides with where the group is. Hopefully you put an X where you were. The group was probably right down the middle, okay, between 14 and 17, 18 to 21. That's where the Latino countries are. Okay, moderate to high group focus. Read through the descriptions of this, okay? Low group focus, don't rely on group for solutions. Acknowledge individuals. Promotion on individual merit. Okay, decision making faster. Why do you think that is? With low group focus, decision making faster. You have to build consensus. Okay, so individual decision making, but implementation slower. Why do you think that is? People haven't bought into it, right? So you don't have consensus. Employees seek to stand out. Individual opportunities for problem solving. Nuclear family focus, individual taste, meetings maximize efficiency, meetings for information exchange. Hold that thought. Okay, that's on the low end. High group focus. Groups will come up with solutions. Not individuals, groups. Do not single people out for reward. Promotions based on team results. Decision making slower. Implementation faster, because once you got consensus, you're going. employees seek to fit in. Anybody that stands out, knock back in. Huge premium on fitting in, okay? Provide opportunities to work in groups, extended family, individual expression frowned upon. Meetings take longer, meetings for voicing opinion, because it's a group kind of, paradigm. So, if those are the two extremes of group focus, where do you think PwC would be? Where would you put the P? High group focus, low group focus, or in the middle? Tends to be high group focus, right? Is that the consensus? Anybody who wants to say it's more individual? There's no right or wrong here, by the way. Yes, sir.
I would say it's more in the middle.
More individual.
There are instances when it's almost like baseball. There are times when you're at the plate and you're swinging the bat and it's individual, and there are times when you're playing the field and you're playing together as a group.
Well, and I think, Steve, when we're comparing how we are as a firm and how we want to be as a firm to how we measure people,
yes,
we see a lot of difference. So we as a firm really believe in the power of teams, yet we're still struggling at times with how to measure team performance, so we do fall back on individual recognition.
Yeah. How many group evaluations do you have?
Yeah.
Right? Not very many, right? It's an individual, thing like that. Some of these other countries, they have group evaluations.
Again, think about what Tony just said, guys, because you are now shaping the contours of this business. I bet you, dollars to dimes, there are people in this audience that have been confused by the bipolar nature of this firm. Because in front of clients, you're a team. It's a team that works. Performance review time, which is now, individual contributions matter. Don't get confused. Juan Roberto is going to tell you how the predisposition of Latino cultures might influence your thinking, especially during this performance review period. Go ahead, Juan Roberto.
Yeah, and here's an area where we're easily faked out, right? Because culturally, Latinos tend to defer to the group, placing needs and goals of the group above those of the individual, and promoting collaboration. I mean, we're like that. This whole notion of familia feels good. We run in packs. We're not out there, Lone Ranger. I got an invitation once to go to a wedding, and it said Juan Roberto, Job, and guest. And I said, wow, that's a suggestion. That's a guest. Well, right? I mean, you bring that. What was that story about my big fat Greek wedding? Right, a Latino wedding, you bring all the and bring in primos. They should put that Juan Roberto, Job, and bring in primos. But that's how we react. And it's interesting that the consumer goods companies understand that about us. That when those that are marketing to us, those of us that reach out to our community, understand that mindset. I mean, think about any Goya TV commercial you've ever seen. Have you ever seen like one guy there standing all by himself with a bowl of rice, comiendo arroz con pollo, right? No. Who's at the table? Everybody. Got the abuela, you got the little kids running around, you got everybody. Same deal. Decision to buy a car. Hey, load up everybody, take everybody, see what everybody thinks. And to your point, this is a big deal. Like one big mistake that a couple of automakers made once was marketing to Latinas and having the woman there as the sole decision maker in the buying process. Might have been entirely true in that situation, but in portraying their company to the community, they don't get it. We're all involved. So next ad that came out showed the lady with her dad, I think, and that just was more culturally relevant. So again, where we get faked out all the time is it is feel good to work in a team. We're excellent contributors to a team, but we don't know how to communicate all the good work that we do on the team, and this is something that I learned also, thankfully in my career. One time someone said, we were working a team project, and they said, okay, well, everybody's working together. Remember, there's no I in team, right? And then somebody got promoted out of the team, and then I looked at the word and I said, yeah, but there's a me, there's M and E, So how do we understand that? How do we understand that? And how do we call attention to the good work that we've done? I mean, Liz brought up something about asking the question. How many times have you been sitting there with a question, a comment, or a suggestion in your head, and as Tony said, waiting for the right time, waiting for that one window when somebody says, what do you think? And it doesn't come, and someone else blurts out that same great idea, and then you hear the boss say, Tony, that's a great idea, right? Then they're looking at you like, why couldn't you have thought of that? You say, well, it did. It's up here. I just didn't say it. But so again, while we are collective and we think collectively, there are things about our culture that help us project this. That great refrán, hoy por mí, mañana por ti. Okay? Today's my time. It'll be your time tomorrow. Flip that around. It's your time today. It'll be my time tomorrow, because we do help, we do support, and we are able to do that and show our good work appropriately.
Yeah. Hey, do you think this skill is different when you just start with a firm versus when you're a partner? How do you think it shifts? Or do you think it's? Go ahead.
Well, I think you have age, right? So now I'm elder. So
Mm-hmm.
now I look at Latin culture now. It's my time. Today's about me as opposed to. So there is definitely an age difference. The older you get, the more you become stay as opposed to two, right?
Yeah. Also, that you're running teams, right? I mean, as you become a partner, there's more people accountable to you, and so this skill is really, in terms of the group thing, is really important at the partner level, okay? But at the individual level, I think, obviously, sharing and collaborating is a core behavior at PwC, but at the same time, the individual contributions are really important. In fact, they think if you have a great team, okay, if you have a great individuals, great players, okay, you use the baseball, if you have great players, you'll have a great team, all right? And so they really do stress that individual thing. You guys have heard about branding? Branding yourself? That's highly expected, okay? You have to brand yourself, okay? It's not branding the whole group, all right? And the thing is, this thing here, your career is more important to you than anybody else, okay? And I know you might have mentors, you may have sponsors. Do you know the difference between mentor? What is the difference between a mentor and a sponsor? Anybody? Yes, go ahead.
A mentor is someone that you can go to for advice who will lead you. A sponsor is someone who will back you up and help push you forward.
Yeah, create opportunities for you, right? Okay, but both of those are important. But guess what? Your career is more important to you than it is to your mentor or your sponsor. And you got to take care of that. So brand yourself well at PwC. Comments before we move on?
When you're on a team, figure out an area, contribute to the team, but figure out a role for yourself that's distinctive for yourself on the team. That's yours. Okay, so this way you're still contributing to the team, but you're also highlighting your brand. Number two, when you're talking about your accomplishments, don't just talk about what you did, but talk about how you did it. Focus on the how just as much on the what. That will bring richness and texture to you and your brand, and it'll help you stand out. And by the way, if you can link the how to the PwC values, that connection will make you stand out even more.